I don't know about you, but for many years I didn't consider myself a creative person. It was only once I started to spend more time in nature and that internal desire arose that I wanted to really create something outside of my day-to-day corporate job that I started to tap into that energy. Today I get to create every single day, and there's a couple of different tools that got me there that I really want to share with you in today's video. In today's video, I want to talk about how you can spark your creativity. No matter if you're feeling like you are a creative person and you have just lost your creative spark, or if you consider yourself an uncreative person. So I would say, let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Arndt and I'm a peak performance coach and stress management trainer, and I am super excited to talk with you today about creativity. As I already mentioned in the introduction, there were many years that I didn't consider myself a creative person because I think I always associated creativity with drawing and with creating paintings and things like that. And I had a very tough art teacher that always used to tell me that I'm not good at art. Anyway, today I get to create every single day and I absolutely love creating, and I actually realized that I am a super creative person and that I love to create different things. And creativity can be expressed in so many different ways. For me, it is obviously, for example, creating these videos and creating thumbnails and all of these kind of creative things, right? But also obviously social media posts, making sure that my feed on Instagram looks a certain way, newsletter, right? When you are building a business, there's a lot of creative things that you need to do, and I really love doing that. So I want to share with you today 5 different things that you can do in order to tap into your creative energy. And I'm already going to say ahead of that I'm very sorry for the changes in light today because we have a cloudy day in Tahoe and there's going to be light sections and not so light sections, and it's really hard to adjust the camera. So I apologize in advance that it's a little bit back and forth today, but I don't think that should take away from all of the beautiful content that I want to share with you today. So I would say, let's jump into tip number 1. And the first tip that I want to share with you today is getting started. Yes, I know this is not easy, and that's exactly why you're watching this YouTube video right now, but if you want to be creative, you need to get started. This is the most important thing that you need to do. And obviously I'm going to share a couple of things on how to get started, but you have to start getting into something, right? You can't just sit there and ruminate and overthink the things that you might need to be creative about, because this is oftentimes holding us back from actually doing something. So getting started is by far the most important thing. And it is really interesting because I think for many years, I myself, and I'm sure a lot of you as well, was thinking that I need to find my motivation first before I can do something about it, right? Before I can take action. However, it is actually the other way around. It is really important that you start to take action first, that you almost force yourself to do something, and then once you do that, you will actually see how the motivation is coming along with it. So I would say, let's jump into tip number 2, where I'm going to share a couple of my favorites of what I'm doing in order to get started when I feel not so creative. So tip number 2, how to get started. Obviously, first of all, you need to get clear on what you want to create. So ask yourself the question, what do I want to create? Why do I want to create it? Do you just want to create because maybe it is a creative outlet and an expression for yourself to do something, no matter if it is art or photography or writing, right? Because creativity can express itself in so many different ways. Or are you working on something specific? Are you working on an art project? Are you working on a work project and you need to have some creative ideas in order to get into that? So make sure that first of all you get clear on what you want to create and define that. And obviously once you have that, then there are a couple of different ways on how to get started. So let's jump into that. So here we are with step number 3. I am super excited to share now with you a couple of really specific things that you can do in order to start your creative process once you have defined what you want to work on. There are 3 different ways on how to do that. Number 1 is to go in your browser, that's what I do, and open a blank document, and I just start to write down all of the thoughts and ideas that I have. I usually give it a title, and then I just really create and brainstorm all of the different ideas and thoughts that I have on my mind. And that is really helpful sometimes, especially when you don't really know where to start. Brainstorming is a super powerful exercise, especially as a former project and program manager. I really love to do that because I know the power of it. And it is really important that you are not judging your own ideas or thoughts at that specific point in time when you're just brainstorming. So write down the craziest ideas, the craziest thoughts that you have, because sometimes those specific ones might not be the answer, but maybe a combination of all of the different ideas that you came up with. It really starts to just create that process in your brain to come up with something really interesting. And if you don't feel very motivated to do that, maybe that's exactly the point that is keeping you from starting that project, then really force yourself maybe for 2 minutes or for 5 minutes to just really write down all your thoughts. Obviously, you can do that on a blank piece of paper or in a journal as well, if you prefer paper physical products, which I like to do as well. But this is the first thing that you can do in order to start a creative process. The second thing that I love to do is to build and create a vision board. This is a lot more of a creative process that really gives me the opportunity to really build something new from scratch and to build vision boards, to build some ideas and some colors and some maybe forms of something that I would like to bring into the world. And what I do there is I just basically sit down and I take a couple of different magazines, I take a white Canva board and obviously scissors and some glue, and I start to flick through the pages and I just look at things that inspire me. Again, obviously it is important that you predefine the topic that you want to work on in order to go a little bit in a certain or specific direction. And then I just basically cut out all of the different things that inspire me. Titles, obviously little images, maybe little pieces of words or quotes. And sometimes I also just write down specific words on the vision board itself if I obviously don't find them in the magazines itself. But this is a super fun way, and I oftentimes do that for the next year. I usually create different vision boards for every year in order to manifest the things that I would like to bring into my life. And sometimes I also do that for work-specific things. So for when I am really thinking about where do I want to bring my business to the next level? How do I want to bring my business to the next level? Those are all things that I like to vision board around. So try it out, and I hope you find that as inspiring and as fun as I do. And the last thing that I want to share with you, so the third part of this creation process now, is that if you feel really uninspired, if you feel really uncreative, then I highly encourage you to find a group of people that are working on the same maybe challenge or the same problem. And I give you a very specific example. In 2015, I started to speak to a colleague of mine because he was also a professional athlete and we were both working at the same company. And I started to come up here to Tahoe on a more regular basis, and I asked him, how can you just be at work all the time, be kind of in this place that is very structured, and how do you not want to break free and be outside all the time? How do you kind of manage that? And he told me, so that was kind of a problem I had, obviously. And so he told me about this course that he took in order to create passive income. And so I was like, oh my God, I've never thought about that and I don't really know where to get started. So he invited me to join that group, and I signed up to build a little business in 90 days with this group together. And that was a super cool process on how to spark my creativity and obviously be held accountable and feel committed to this process. So sometimes what can be really helpful if you're feeling stuck in your creative process it can be really helpful to find a group of individuals that can help you get to that next level. Again, it is important, obviously, that you define what you want to do, or sometimes it can also just be really, really important to just follow, you know, maybe that calling. Sometimes maybe we don't have it clearly defined. Sometimes we don't really know where to start. Sometimes we don't really know what we want to do. But if you hear about something and you feel like, ooh, like, you know, something's happening within you and you feel like, ooh, this could be really interesting, then just follow that and see where it takes you, because those are usually the little signs that you're going in the right direction. And if you still find it difficult to start this creative process, I also have a couple of journaling prompts with you that I want to share with you in order to maybe help you to either write something down or create that vision board. And here they are. Number 1, where do you aspire to be in a few years from now? What attracts you at the moment? People, places, activities? Use this as a way to collect ideas. Anything that you feel attracted to, cut it out. It could be titles, images, etc. And then another beautiful question could be, what do you find beautiful? Why do you find it beautiful? And as you're going into this exploratory phase, you know, maybe like little sparks and little ideas are coming up, and that will really bring you back into this creative process. Okay, so once you have that, the next step that I find incredibly important when you are tapping into that creativity and if you want to start that creative process is to be intentional with who you spend your time and how you spend your own time, and to build systems. So, you know, when I want to be creative, it is incredibly important for me that I have space. I need to have space. I do not need to have any meetings that day when I want to be creative or for a larger chunk of time, right? So I really make sure to clear my schedule, either half a day or a full day, no matter how long I am planning to build this new project, and then to really set boundaries and say no to things as things are coming up. And then it is also really important for me to be by myself. I am a little bit of an introvert. I do have an extroverted side as well, but I am an introvert, and especially when I want to create, usually I like to do that on my own. I obviously pick different pieces and places sometimes. Again, you know, it doesn't mean that because I'm an introvert, I am only creating by myself. Sometimes I do need people around me, and sometimes I ask friends to spend time with me or do a strategic session with me in order to help me with that creative brainstorming process. So there's really no right or wrong. If you are an introvert and you feel like you need space and time, do that. If you are an extrovert and you feel like that you need people around you and you need to have that hustle and bustle in order to create something, that's okay. And if you're an introvert that needs people, that's okay. And if you're an extrovert that needs space and time, that's okay as well. You see what I mean? So no matter who you are, no matter what you need specifically for that specific project or for that specific idea, just do that. There's no right or wrong. So that's the first part, right? Being intentional on how you are creating your space, how you're setting up your space, and then obviously also who you spend your time with. And then the second part of this is to create really systems. So as I already mentioned, for me, it is really important that for some of the things that I need to be creative about every single week, because I am creating a YouTube video every week, I am creating different posts every week, I am setting myself goals. This is super important for me. This has been super important for the whole time since I started my business, which was about 3.5 years ago. And I really find it super important for myself to have specific goals on how much I want to create per week. So for example, for my podcast and for my YouTube channel and for my Instagram account, I have set myself goals about how many videos I post, how many podcasts, how many posts on social media I post, right? And I do that every single week, and that really holds me accountable and committed to do that, because I'm a peak performer and I am super ambitious, and it is hard for me to not do certain things. And yeah, and that works super well for me. So systems, I believe, especially as a creative person, sometimes is also important, because I don't think it is just about doing it when you feel like doing it, I think it is equally as important that you are sometimes forcing yourself, because sometimes I think, yes, absolutely, you just need to step away and you need to do something different, which by the way is another kind of cool way to be creative. Sometimes when I feel like I really don't have good ideas, I am going outside in nature, or I do something completely different to the task that I should be doing in order to spark my creativity. Or I'm scrolling through Pinterest or through Instagram and I'm getting ideas that way, right? But again, I am creating that space to actually do it in order to not find excuses to not do it in the first place. And I think that's just as equally as important as just finding time for your creative process. And the last step that I want to share with you today is to identify your blocks. We all have blocks from now and then, and it's absolutely normal. So before we go into really identifying the block, just accept that it is there. Don't push it away. Don't feel bad about yourself. Don't feel guilty. We are all human beings and we are sometimes blocked, or we are sometimes not feeling certain things, where we're not feeling like we should take action or something. And then it can be really helpful to identify what specifically is blocking you. So in coaching, we actually differentiate between two different types of blocks: action blocks and emotional blocks. So sometimes it can just be an action that is keeping you from going forward and moving forward. So sometimes you just need to take action, right? And you need to decide on the next first step. And sometimes it is an emotional block. So sometimes it is something where maybe in the past you've had a bad experience. Like I told you before, my art teacher always told me that I'm not a very artsy person and that I'm not really good at drawing and not really good at painting. And so for the longest time, I thought I am not really a creative person. However, as I mentioned, as I started this creative process and I started to build this first little business in 2015, I actually started to tap into that creativity, and I was super surprised how I could actually express myself. So sometimes it can be really helpful to ask yourself the really simple question: what experience in the past might make me feel not creative? Maybe you had an art teacher, or maybe a person, maybe a family member that told you that you're not very creative or that you're not really good at something, right? It doesn't really matter if it is specifically on the creative process itself or the creativity or something else. And once you identify that, sometimes we can bring some breaths and some awareness into that, and that can really help you to let go of that. And then obviously ask yourself the next question then, which is, what is the first thing that I can do in order to actually get out of that rut, get out of that inaction, right? And oftentimes when you feel like inaction, you actually need to take action. Sometimes it is to really just walk away and to just let it go for a day and not do anything about it. As I said before, there's no right or wrong. It's really about what really resonates with you right now in this video, and what do you feel like when you're very honest with yourself that you need to do right now. Is it that you should be really sitting down and just starting to jot down ideas, or is it that today is really not the day? Find that answer for yourself, and I hope that all of the different steps and ideas that I shared with you today are helping you to be a little bit more creative. So thank you so much for watching my video today. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this content, and leave me a comment down below and let us know, what are you working on right now? I am super excited to hear from you and read your comments. And until then, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I am super excited to see you in one of my next videos.